I'm in picture mode.
Welcome to the Dead Sea. This is the first in the series of Dead Sea videos we're going to do. There's 3 major sites here, and then of course the Dead Sea itself that we're going to be talking about. This is the first of the 3 sites that we're going to today, and of course we came here in the morning because this place can be brutal in the midday sun. So this is actually a palace behind me. If you can see, there's a giant mountain. There's a huge mountain range that kind of goes across this entire area here. We are right now in the lowest place on Earth at the Dead Sea, and these mountains kind of surround it all over the place. Now, we've talked previously in this series about Herod the Great and how he's a master builder. This is one of the major projects that he took on. And basically, he took the top of a mountain, chopped it off, and created this large living space and palace up here on Masada. So we're going to talk about that today, but there's also a really kind of horrifying story that actually happens here right after the death and resurrection of Christ. This is actually where the last stand of the Zealots took place, the Sicarii. Let's go up here. We're not gonna walk it up. There is like a mile trail that you can take that's like super vertical and kind of scary at times. We don't have time or energy to do that today, so we are gonna take the cable car. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll meet you up there. While it may not look like it, I am on top of a mountain right now. You have 3 main ways in order to get up to Masada. One is the snake path. This is a little over a mile-long path that goes basically straight up the side of the mountain, kind of zigzagging back and forth and up a ton of stairs. You could also take the cable car, which costs a little bit of money, but is well worth it if you're carrying a lot of gear like I am today. And then there's a 3rd way that you can take coming up the opposite side of the mountain range, up a ramp that we'll talk about in just a second. That's really important to this place, Masada. Now just imagine what it took to actually build this place. I'll try to find some drone footage online since I can't fly a drone here, and I'll show you exactly what this place looks like from above, but man, is it impressive. Herod the Great basically chopped off the top of this mountain, made whatever he wanted here. There's 2 different palaces, a bunch of different buildings. This building that's behind me is one of the smallest ones that's actually here. So we'll check out some of the other things that are here that are really important to Masada in general. Basically, this place was made to be the best fortress ever. It's a huge mountain that you could see all around you in every single angle, and there's no good way up here and no quick way up here especially. So it would be very difficult for anybody to sneak up on you and to get up here without you knowing. And so this made it super defendable and easy for King Herod to know what's going on. This place was basically made to take on a long siege, which is exactly what happens here in about 73 AD. Overall, this place is really amazing. Not only the buildings that were constructed here, but also the systems that are in place to keep this a viable place to actually live. There are storehouses and even ways in which water was collected on top of the mountain in the middle of the desert, where the only body of water is the Dead Sea over here, with obviously no potable water there. And so what they actually had here was a huge rain collection system and large cisterns in order to house all of this water for a long time. That was really important, especially for people that were up here either patrolling or later on, as we talked about, the Zealots who actually did their last stand here. And now let's get into that story. Real quick, I just wanted to thank Imagine Tours and Travels for sponsoring this video and helping out with this series. Without them, we really couldn't have done this. Whenever I travel to Israel, I always go with Imagine, and that is because they have never let me down. It's always been amazing trips. Their guides and drivers and everything are always right on point. Logistically, Israel can be really difficult, but when you have a team like Imagine behind you, it makes it so much better. So if you want to run a trip, or if you want to go on another trip, then go to ittworld.com and check out their brochures. There's a lot of different trips, including our trip on December 2nd if you want to go with us in 2024. But if for some weird reason Israel isn't your thing, it's okay, because Imagine goes all over the world. You could go to Greece or Germany. There are so many different trips that are really interesting. You could journey through the Reformation or follow the footsteps of Paul. There are so many unique trips that Imagine has, so go check those out at ittworld.com, and the link is going to be in the description down below. Let's get back to the video. So obviously Herod the Great wasn't around forever. He did eventually die even before Jesus' ministry. Then after Jesus' ministry, there was a lot of different things that happened, including a Jewish-Roman war. around 66 AD, and then past that, basically this place was left abandoned. Because Herod's forces obviously were no longer here, then the Romans didn't really have a use for this space, and so the Zealots saw that it was abandoned and actually took up this large fortress as their own. And so for several years, the Zealots actually lived here. They used the storehouses, they used the cisterns, and they were able to basically defend this location. Now, of course, Rome has been wanting to get rid of the Zealots for as long as they existed, right? These are assassins, and specifically the group that was here, a lot of people believe that this was the last remnants of the Sicarii. Sicarii referencing a dagger, a kind of curved dagger that these assassins would use in their work. And we actually see an example of this in The Chosen in Simon the Zealot, as he's a part of the Sicarii order.
Show me your weapon. Impressive. That is something.
Without my secret dagger, why do you need someone like me?
I have everything I need. But I wanted you.
And since the Romans really needed to get rid of the Zealots, they decided to siege Masada, and that was around 66 AD. The Zealots took this place, and then immediately the Romans began to kind of plan what they were going to do. Now, this became such a big battle that the Romans actually started creating camps all around Masada. This was because they needed a place to live and eat and sleep, because it was taking them literal years to siege this place. And so it took forever. But there was one thing that the Romans did know, and that was that eventually they would win. Because, of course, Masada doesn't really have any great farmland, doesn't have a lot of good, useful things to keep you alive for many, many, many years, right? Eventually you're going to run out of stores, eventually you're going to run out of water, eventually you're going to run out of time. And that's basically exactly what happened here at Masada. The Romans waited, and they spent their time kind of sieging this area and cutting off their water supplies, cutting off their food supplies, and making sure that their time was running out. Near the end, the Romans began to build a giant ramp over here on the other side of Masada. And this is the ramp that they eventually brought their siege tanks up and broke down the doors of the fortress and came into Masada. And so the next question is, well, did the Romans win once they got in here? What was the battle like? What was the fight like? And so the story actually goes like this. Some people believe this is a myth, some people believe this is not true, but some people believe this is definitely exactly what happened. But the only real evidence that we have of this story is from Josephus, who is a historian right after the time of Jesus. Now, he mentions things about Jesus, he mentions things about Masada, he mentions things about a lot of different things, but he has a tendency to over-exaggerate and maybe to tell stories from time to time, although some of his writings are definitely credible, and it's hard to say which is which, so take this with a grain of salt. But here's the story that Josephus actually tells us about the Zealots at Masada. So slowly but surely, the Romans begin to build this ramp on the other side of Masada, and they're bringing their tanks up, and they burst open the doors ready to fight the Zealots. But that doesn't actually happen. You see, the days upcoming to this big battle, the Zealots saw that the ramp was coming. They saw that all of this was happening, and they knew their time was up. There was no way they could escape. There was encampments all around Masada. There was nowhere for them to run. And so what they decided to do was to keep their dignity, to keep their honor. They decided basically to kill their families and then themselves. If this story is true from Josephus, it's one of the saddest in all of Israel's history. I mean, imagine having about 960 to 1,000 zealots up here on this mountain all by themselves, knowing that they're about to lose a battle. But what they decide to do in taking their own lives is have a very organized way of doing so. This is because suicide is so looked down upon and can have major ramifications within religious beliefs. And so the zealots didn't want to commit suicide. What they did was they had a highly organized plan to take everyone's life. They picked 10 of the zealots to be the main culprits of this matter. They killed literally everybody else. Then with those 10 left, they actually drew lots to have one person kill the rest of the 9. And then that one person was left to do the job himself. So that means whenever the Romans had come up on Masada, there really wasn't anything here. The food stores were probably empty, the water was probably gone, and the zealots were out of time. There really wasn't anything to see but bodies on the ground. And that's basically where Masada stopped. There wasn't really anything else since then until now. There is some evidence that the Romans would have used this fortress after that siege, and then also later on the Byzantines would have come here and built some smaller buildings as well, but nothing to the size of what Herod built here. Definitely not. But as you can see, there are a ton of people that actually come to this place and tour it, not only from outside of Israel, but actually a lot of people from Israel come here for school trips or different things like that as well. So both a majestic palace and a grim graveyard, Masada is one of the most interesting places in the Dead Sea. Now you're not going to want to miss the next episode as we jump over to one of the most important locations ever in Christian history, one of the biggest finds for Jews and Christians in the Dead Sea area. Anyway, we'll get there next time. Don't miss it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.